What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Monday, November 1st. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, we have a 9-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. So I'm going to start it off with a value play. I like Shake Milton from the Philadelphia 76ers playing the Portland Trailblazers, who have the 9th worst defense overall, and they give up the 4th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Shake Milton has averaged 22.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 18 minutes per game with a 29% usage rate. He's projected at 22.9 fantasy points here tonight. That's 6.4 times value. He's only $3,600 DraftKings salary. He's $900 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 220.5 points scored in this game. So I like Shake Milton here versus the Portland Trailblazers. Now the other point guard that I like is Fred VanVleet from the Toronto Raptors playing the New York Knicks, who have the 10th or have the 8th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing shooting guards. Fred VanVleet has averaged 37.7 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 38 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He's projected at 38.2 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 45 fantasy points or more in this one. He's $8,700 DraftKings salary, and he's $700 less on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 211 points scored in this game. Now, I like this pick because Fred VanVleet has scored 58 and 47 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Knicks. So I like Fred VanVleet here versus the New York Knicks. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won. And we'll send you $25 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Will Barton from the Denver Nuggets playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have the 2nd worst defense overall. They give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards, and Will Barton has averaged 30.2 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He's projected at 30 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's $5,700 DraftKings salary, $200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 216 points scored in this game. And take a look at this. Will Barton has scored 52, 36, 28, and 45 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Grizzlies. So I love this play. So I like Will Barton here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, another shooting guard that I like is Anthony Melton from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Denver Nuggets, who have a good defense overall, but they give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Anthony Melton has averaged 30.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. He's projected at 30.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's $5,700 DraftKings salary, $300 more on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 216 points scored in this game, and Anthony Melton has scored 15, 54, 28, and 30 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Nuggets. So 3 out of those 4 games did pretty well. So I like Anthony Melton here versus the Denver Nuggets. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. A stud pick for you. I like Paul George from the LA Clippers playing the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Paul George has averaged 51.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 35% usage rate. He's projected at 51.4 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 55 fantasy points or more in this one, get you over 5 times value. He's 10,700 DraftKings salary, 600 less on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 212.5 points scored in this game, so I like Paul George here versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. Another small forward that I like is Scotty Barnes from the Toronto Raptors playing the New York Knicks, who have the 8th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing small forwards. Scotty Barnes has averaged 34.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 22% usage rate. He's projected at 34.3 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's 6,800 DraftKings salary, 100 less on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 211 points scored in this game, and Scotty Barnes has scored 41, 40, and 40 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Scotty Barnes here versus the New York Knicks. Okay, let's take a look at the power forward position. I like Al Horford from the Boston Celtics playing the Chicago Bulls, who have a good defense overall, but they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Al Horford has averaged 41.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. He's projected at 41.3 fantasy points here tonight. That's 6.4 times value. He's 6,500 DraftKings salary, 1,100 more on FanDuel. So I love that DraftKings price. He's projected at 217.5. Vegas thinks there's going to be 217.5 points scored in this game. So I like Al Horford here versus the Chicago Bulls.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on.
Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Another power forward that I like is Demar Derozan from the Chicago Bulls playing the Boston Celtics, who have the worst defense overall. They give up the 12th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Demar Derozan has averaged 39.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 30% usage rate. He's projected at 38.9 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 42 fantasy points or more in this one, get you 5 times value or more. He's 8,600 DraftKings salary, 1,000 less on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 217.5 points scored in this game, and Demar Derozan has scored 62, 37, 44, 30, and 38 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Celtics. So I like DeMar DeRozan here versus the Boston Celtics. Okay, moving on to the center position. Another stud pick for you. I like Nikola Jokic from the Denver Nuggets playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have the second worst defense overall. They give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Nikola Jokic has averaged 55.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 32% usage rate. He's projected at 55 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's 11,000 DraftKings salary, 200 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 216 points scored in this game. And Nikola Jokic has scored 54, 79, 63, 50, and 64 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Grizzlies. So excellent player versus team history. So I like Nikola Jokic here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. And another center I like is Montres Herrell from the Washington Wizards playing the Atlanta Hawks, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing centers. Montres Herrell has averaged 38.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 21% usage rate. He's projected at 39.4 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.9 times value. He's 6,700 DraftKings salary, 1,000 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 222 points scored in this game, and Montres Herrell has scored 42, 56, and 45 fantasy points in his last 3 games. And he scored 56, 41, 29, 45, and 26 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Hawks. Now he's playing a bunch of minutes, played 35, 34, and 38 minutes in the last 3 games. So probably one of my favorite plays on the slate on DraftKings. So I like Montres Herrell here versus the Atlanta Hawks.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.